Light is brewed to give you everything you want in a beer. Never-ending refreshment, superior drinkability, and now, the ability to talk to animals.
Hey there, boy. How was your day?
Sausages. 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 Please, sausages. 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 Sausage.
Okay.
Sausage.
Good talk.
Sausages.
The ability to talk to animals no longer available in Bud Light.
Sausage.
The endless refreshment, however, remains.
Bud Light keeps it coming.
What's on your mind, little buddy?
Mind your own business, chump.
With over 7,000 breweries ranging from industry giants to microbreweries, it is not an overstatement to say that beer lies at the heart of America's culture. And while many big and small names line beer shelves across the nation, no brand has held quite a legacy as Bud Light. A product of the Budweiser brand, Bud Light gained popularity in 2001 as America's top-selling beer brand. It would keep the #1 spot secured for decades to come, until one marketing disaster didn't just dethrone Bud Light, but brought the whole brand crashing down. Today's video will have a look at the Bud Light legacy and its fall from grace to a point where it has almost disappeared from the market shelves. In 1857, 18-year-old Adolphus Busch arrived in the United States from Germany as an immigrant eager to live the American dream. Born to a wealthy family owning multiple businesses of wineries and breweries, he had quite a few things working in his favor. First, he had a good education. Second, coming from a family of businessmen also meant that he had a natural talent for it and spent a significant time in his life learning how to be successful from men of experience around him. Finally, since he was the second last born of 22 children, he was very resourceful. His first job in the bustling city of St. Louis was a clerk, but he was a smart man. Along with his day job, Adolphus also worked hard on understanding the demographics of the city. He knew that St. Louis was home to many German immigrants. Now the question was, what do Germans love and what was Adolphus good at? The answer was beer. He was well versed in the business of beer wholesale. The market conditions were more than favorable, and most importantly, the most important resources for storing beer were naturally available in the city. St. Louis had an ample supply of fresh water thanks to the Missouri River, and the natural caves in the area allowed him to store his product in perfect conditions. His resourcefulness and business mindset would prop him up in high society as he took his first big step at the age of 21 by buying shares in a brewing supply business. While Adolphus built his path to glory, another German immigrant, Eberhard Anheuser, was establishing his footing in the beer making industry. The heir to a German vineyard had made his way to America in 1842. By 1860, he had managed to take full control of the Bavarian Brewery Company by buying out the other minor shareholders in the business. He was now effectively the president and CEO of the company, and his first order of business was rebranding. He renamed his new company Eberhard Anheuser & Company. The two men had strong business ties, and by 1861, they became family when Adolphus married Eberhard's daughter, Lily. And thus began the legacy of Budweiser, as together, the two German men would soon build an empire that dominated the beer industry worldwide for years.
Even in the 1890s already, the company known as Anheuser-Busch was already a very hardball dominant player in what was called the shipping business, trying to ship beyond your own local market. It was located in St. Louis, but he had aspirations to ship beer to everywhere in the world.
The art of beer brewing has been practiced by humans since about 4000 BCE, yet American light beer only came into existence in the early 1940s when the Coors Brewing Company first introduced their Coors Light. Its lower calorie count and milder taste appealed to a new market segment, attracting both people who were health conscious and those who didn't enjoy the strong taste of traditional beer. Light beer was now the upcoming trend. But then came World War II, and like many industries at that time, the beer industry took a huge blow. Grain shortages worldwide caused many businesses like Coors Brewing Company to collapse. But there was one resilient brewery that, despite financial losses and supply shortages, survived the war knowing that the resilience would soon be rewarded. It wasn't the first challenge they had overcome. After all, the company was among the handful of breweries that survived the American Civil War, and it would also continue to survive the alcohol ban of 1920 to 1933. Anheuser-Busch's survival is remarkable. It's perhaps a direct consequence of its resilience that the company reached the height of its industry-wide success. Following Coors Light, other light beers would attempt to enter the American market but failed. Then came the 96 calories Miller Lite and took the US market by storm. By 1975, their beer went national, with even athletes promoting the low-calorie, better-tasting beer.
That light beer from Miller. I want want to take this opportunity myself to tell you. I tell you, I don't get no respect.
Garçon, je dis saignant. Si elle est pas saignante, what is it? Meatloaf sandwich and a light.
Gentlemen, as we all know and appreciate, light has 1/3 less calories than a regular beer, and it's less filling.
But the best thing is, it tastes great.
Less filling.
Gentlemen.
Hey, Deacon, pass the roll.
Hey, Charlie, that's my beer.
No, this is by your broccoli. This is my broccoli.
That's my beer.
What's wrong with you guys? Hey, Bubba, you want the peas? Ooh. Hey, you gonna eat all that?
Just showing off.
Gentlemen, in closing, I'd like to think I speak for all of us when I say if it wasn't for light, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Hey, you're profound.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Marketing was genius. The motto, guys can drink light beer too. Bottom line was, Miller Lite was a huge success with about 5 million barrels being shipped within the first year. The industry had to respond, and they had to respond fast. Soon, the Coors Light was back and Anheuser-Busch launched Natural Light and Michelob Light. But Anheuser-Busch's reluctance to bring the slightest change to Budweiser, America's largest beer brand, would keep Bud Light off the shelves until 1982. It was their crown jewel. Budweiser had never failed. The risk was simply too big. Yet as the pressure built and Miller Lite started showing signs of dominance, the company finally gave in, commissioning Budweiser Light, better known as Bud Light. They would soon find out that their leap of faith would bring them even more glory than their brand had seen before. The already well-established name of Budweiser helped prop Bud Light to new heights of fame, but the key ingredient was clever marketing, from securing spots at Super Bowl commercials to ad campaigns that engaged the company's target customers. Bud Light was all set for success. By 2001, Bud Light was the talk of the town, gaining world dominance, cementing its name as the world's largest beer brand. Bud Light would continue its reign of dominance for over the next 2 decades. But sadly for Bud Light, all their hard work in building a seemingly unbeatable brand would soon be for nothing because of one fatal mistake.
All right, Maggie, to all our beer drinkers out there, this may come as a surprise, maybe not to some, but Bud Light is no longer the top-selling beer in the U.S.
When it comes to doing business, often what matters more for success is a company's ability to sell their product more than the product itself. Branding is everything, and the people at Budweiser were no short of geniuses at this job. They had great commercials, a brand that connected with its consumers, and cans of beer moving out of the grocery stores faster than they were being restocked. Budweiser had not just won over America's taste buds by this point, they had also taken over the world of beer marketing. It was America's brand of choice, all thanks to clever marketing campaigns that represented their average customers in a traditional American brand.
Company has done a remarkable job, I think, of maintaining its stranglehold on beer drinkers in the United States. And I don't mean that there are no choices. There are something like 9,000 breweries in the U.S. They are the dominant players in the convoluted distribution stream that is mandated partly by federal but also by state law. They're kind of the thugs in the room, and they'll never go away. That's just who they are.
It seemed as though things will keep going on in the right direction for years to come. But as 2023 would show the board at Budweiser, this was not going to be the case forever. In April 2023, Budweiser would make a decision that had disastrous consequences for their brand. Here we introduce an important character, Dylan Mulvaney, a famous TikToker who single-handedly destroyed the Bud Light brand. Dylan Mulvaney is an American TikToker well known for documenting her gender transition in her internet series Days of Girlhood that began in 2022. April of the following year marked her 1 year into transitioning, which she announced on her social media handles as Day 365 of Girlhood with cans of Bud Light.
Hi! Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us. So, I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports. And I'm not sure exactly which sport, but either way, it's a cause to celebrate. This month, I celebrated my Day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it. Check out my Instagram story to see how you can enjoy March Madness with Bud Light and maybe win some money too. Love ya! Cheers! Go team!
In their paid promotion video, Dylan is seen holding cans of Bud Light beer, all in a celebratory and happy tone. According to her, she had 2 things to celebrate. First, March Madness, as basketball fever began to pick up pace. In a complete year, since she began her transition into a woman. She even brings up how Bud Light sent her a can with her face on it, all in the spirit of inclusivity and celebration. On paper, it was a great step toward promoting inclusivity and expanding the brand's consumer market. Having a transgender personality as an ally was technically supposed to bring in more consumers, but perhaps it was too bold and too soon for the brand to assume they would be able to achieve this milestone.
But there's a new movement in advertising. They're no longer shoving their products down our throats, just their identity politics. And the only feeling they're inspiring is extreme irritation. Well, Bud Light's the most popular beer in America, and for reasons which are not entirely clear to anybody at the moment, they recently teamed up with Dylan Mulvaney. She was someone who identified until very recently as a gay man, then non-binary, and now apparently is a woman, and is an influencer who makes kitsch videos about womanhood and being a girl from the vantage point of, to be honest, a biological man.
As the backlash came, the higher management began to scramble. Their previously loyal customers began walking away from Bud Light. Personalities posted videos featuring Bud Light to their social media, this time not so favorable for the brand. One video from Kid Rock, particularly featuring him shooting at cans of Bud Light with an SMG, went viral.
Let me say something to all you and be as clear and concise as possible.
And sooner rather than later, the internet was flooded with similar videos, and the message clear and consistent was, get woke, go broke. As news of boycotts flooded in, major news outlets and mainstream media were gripped with the tensions around the anti-Mulvaney boycotts. More and more people joined in on the movement, and the beer began to lose its popularity in bars and pubs. As May rolled in, sales had dropped by a whopping 20%, with the company losing an astonishing $27 billion in market cap.
This morning, the Bud Light boycott, the one tanking sales by more than 28% over the last 4 weeks, well, the beer brand's partnership with a transgender influence that sparked that culture war, it can be felt pretty much across the country, and especially in Nashville, where the company is facing backlash from both sides. CNN's Ryan Young reports.
Stakeholders began demanding answers, but the damage was already done. Now the goal was simple: face saving and surviving this catastrophe. The company soon issued a weak apology, with their CEO Brendan Whitworth putting out a statement.
How and why did it go so off the rails? Because that certainly wasn't your intention when you did one can to one person.
Yeah, it's been a challenging few weeks. And I think the conversation surrounding Bud Light has moved away from beer. And the conversation has become divisive. And Bud Light really doesn't belong there. Bud Light should be all about bringing people together.
Even Dylan joined in, giving a vague statement on social media. She explained to her viewers that this wasn't something that she had intended, and highlighted the discrimination she had faced during this tumultuous period. But even her statement would only be in vain.
I'm bringing it up because what transpired from that video was more bullying and transphobia than I could have ever imagined. And I should have made this video months ago, but I didn't. And I was scared, and I was scared of more backlash, and I felt personally guilty for what transpired. So I patiently waited for things to get better. But surprise, they haven't really. And I was waiting for the brand to reach out to me, but they never did.
These statements would only go on to cause more damage to the brand. Now, LGBTQ+ activists were beginning their line of boycotts against the company. Their concerns mainly revolved around the fact that the company had abandoned their trans collaborator completely once they began facing backlash.
For months now, I've been scared to leave my house. I have been ridiculed in public. I've been followed. And I have felt a loneliness that I wouldn't wish on anyone. And I'm not telling you this because I want your pity. I am telling you this because if this is my experience from a very privileged perspective, know that it is much, much worse for other trans people. For a company to hire a trans person and then not publicly stand by them is worse, in my opinion, than not hiring a trans person at all, because it gives customers permission to be as transphobic and hateful as they want. And the hate doesn't end with me. It has serious and grave consequences for the rest of our community. And you know, we're customers too.
Was this the inclusivity the brand kept on bragging about?
To be a true ally means that you don't push us behind the scenes and say, well, I'm going to give you some money, but I really don't want you to be front and center or public.
Amidst the controversy, even LGBTQ+ friendly bars began to pull Bud Light off their shelves, fearing backlash from their customers, and this resulted in more losses for Bud Light. By July 2023, Bud Light's operating profits in their US unit had dropped by a staggering 30%. Even the VP of Bud Light marketing team, Alyssa Heinersheet, took to the internet and gave a telling interview trying to explain the idea behind the rebranding.
Yeah, I think number one, I'm a businesswoman. I had a really clear job to do when I took over Bud Light. And it was, this brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time. And if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for Bud Light. So I had this super clear mandate. It's like, we need to evolve and elevate this incredibly iconic brand. And what I brought to that was a belief in, okay, what does evolve and elevate mean? It means inclusivity. It means shifting the tone. It means having a campaign that's truly inclusive and feels lighter and brighter and different and appeals to women and to men. And representation is at sort of the heart of evolution.
But as we find out later in this video, her explanation came a little too late. The disaster she was responsible for didn't just cost the company, but it cost her job as well, as she was put on leave and soon replaced. So the question is, what went wrong? The answer is not that complex. When it comes to business and branding, the rules are simple. Know your customer. Customers of the Bud Light brand were mainly American men with largely conservative traditional values. Before the controversy, the brand had managed to connect with their target customer extremely efficiently, with ads featuring rugged humor and an aura of macho. It was the brand's identity, something their consumers felt represented with. But in an effort to move towards inclusivity, the marketing team at Bud Light moved too fast. Without explaining to their consumers that the brand was attempting to become more inclusive of marginalized communities like the trans community, they jumped forward with a disastrous partnership. This led to a completely opposite branding message and represented values completely different from those that made up the identity of the brand. But worst of all, the already existing market didn't associate with the new values the brand was promoting with Dylan Mulvaney.
I mean, Bud Light had been kind of a brand of fratty, kind of out of touch humor, and it was really important that we had another approach.
Long story short, the frat boy image was working for Bud Light, and their attempt to shed it only brought about unrecoverable financial losses. Associate Professor of Marketing Daniel Korshin at Drexel University sums up the dilemma of Bud Light perfectly.
That's the worst place you can be, is kind of stuck in the middle trying to speak to both sides. And that's been, I think, a big issue. And it's a reason why, in this case, even though they alienated some consumers, they didn't pick up anyone on the other side, because the people on the other side were upset that the company even apologized for having a partnership with a trans influencer. So it's that wishy-washiness that consumers were picking up, or at least that they were thinking that they were picking up. And that wishy-washiness means that they don't really have a strong idea of what the brand is. And I think that's what they were saying in that announcement, the quote that you played earlier, that they need to focus on what the brand is about. I don't think, though, that they can avoid politics altogether. I don't think that that's, in my research, I find that that's not a realistic way to go about it. The trick is to find the issues that make sense with the brand. And here they overstepped a little bit, and they weren't explicit about how this partnership might relate to other things that people know about the brand. And that is part of what caused this controversy to blow up so big.
To make matters worse then, there's a problem with beer as a product. It doesn't take consumers a lot of effort to switch brands. They all have similar tastes and prices, so switching brands doesn't seem like much of a pain to consumers. So when it came to boycotting, the customers of Bud Light had plenty of options to choose from. The story of Bud Light is that of a lost legacy. It highlights how important a brand's identity is to their customers, but most importantly, it brings into the spotlight how one bad move can rip a brand's success to shreds. But the good news is that Anheuser-Busch has many other strong horses in the ring. And even though the losses of Bud Light are massive, with Natural Light and Michelob Light still on the shelves, the company might even make a comeback, this time with a smarter strategy. Besides, boycotts have been around for decades and people tend to forget about them. After all, no one remembers the Jesse Jackson boycott of Anheuser-Busch in 1982. With the company's 2024 Super Bowl ad campaign already being live, the only thing left to do now is observe what next move will be for the Anheuser-Busch company.